Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Michael Kane from Geek Tank Games.
What's up, y'all?
Good. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. It's a little dreary over here in Austin, Texas, but I'm doing good other than that.
It's actually a little warm here in Jersey for this time of year anyway. Warm is relative, I suppose.
I was imagining everybody was in igloos or something.
Well, we've had some cold days, but the weather is so insane here. It just bounces from high and low that no one knows what to do, and everyone's going to die from the pneumonia.
We get a quarter inch of snow. We shut down our schools. We shut down everything. So it's like a holiday when one flake of snow hits the ground.
Snowpocalypse.
That's Texas people for you.
You gonna do? Well, you're used to what you're used to. So apparently, you have a Kickstarter going on. It's doing pretty well.
Yeah, we started with a goal of 20,000, and we did that in 5 days, and then it's steadily growing from there. We also just updated it maybe about a few days ago with other incentives and stretch goals to kind of see if people would want to keep funding it and see where we can go with it.
Well, I wasn't aware of the Kickstarter until Jim Davis from WebDM have reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, you should take a look at this thing and check this thing out." And we're always bringing people on to expose our audiences to different gamers, different products, different ideas, whatever. So I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. So we checked it out, and we've seen other products that are similar but not quite the same. The
Yeah,
the art and the graphics that you're using, they're fun.
yeah. Well, the way it started, well, and just to talk about Jim, I actually enjoy his YouTube channel a lot, and I've been a subscriber to his channel, and I've been watching it. And I just love the advice and just the topics that they give. It kind of gives insight. So I mean, I didn't know him, and I just said, hey, I really love your show. I'm doing this. What do you think? And he just kind of got behind me, and I'm obviously very thankful. He can put us in touch together too. So I'm very thankful for Jim over at WebDM. But getting back to the point, actually, what happened was I was running a game. Excuse me. I was running a game, and I just got sick and tired of drawing objects on the battle map. I didn't like it when my players would walk in the room, and I'd be like, here's the king's throne room, and it was just a square with another smaller square, and that was his throne, and that was it. That's the room. So I got a bright idea saying, well, why don't I create a stencil, which I have the prototype here. Why don't I create these stencils? And these stencils were like different. I don't know if you can see it or not. This will be like a well, some stairs, a tree, just like a boulder, something like that. And then this one would have like tables, chairs, couches, stuff like that. And then I first got the first prototype, and I thought, man, this thing sucks. It really sucked. I didn't like it, and I kind of stumbled a little bit, and I kind of stumbled across this guy named Ross McConnell, who's over at 2 Minute Tabletop, and he has a Patreon, and he gives his artwork out to patrons, and then he had a link that said, reach out to me for the art commercially. So I did. I said, hey, I'm interested in your art commercially, and that's kind of how it started.
Oh, okay. So
I keep elaborating if you want. I don't know how long you want me to hold the microphone for.
no, that's fine. I was not aware that a 2 minute tabletop was involved as well, and that's where the genesis kind of came from the art, because
Correct.
I dig the art. I think that's like the fun part about it. But
Yeah.
because it's not like super hyper realistic, but I want to say cartoony, but not really. I dig the style, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I do too. I got some samples here. So this is the packaging. So that's the art style on it. I dig it too because I think it just kind of the colors jump out on the battle map. So when you lay them on the battle map, you can identify them quickly, and it jumps out. The contrast is different, in my opinion.
No, I agree. So I take it you're not a theater of the mind guy.
Um, not that's not how I got into gaming. Actually, when we got into gaming, we used to just have a graph paper that we would hand around the room and erase where we were at, and then write in where we were moving to, and then conduct a game. So I think the reason I'm not a theater of the mind ish guy is because of my first DM, and then when I got the role of being a DM, I enjoyed using the battle map. I do a little bit of both, but primarily I'm a battlemap guy.
We kind of like crossed over from theater of the mind because we were tired of like having that one DM and that would be like, okay, the ogre hits the wizard in the back, and we're like, how did he get to him? And so we're like, that's it. We need to start putting things down. And even when we played theater of the mind with my first GM, he would like write it out like a football play, with the X's and the O's on a piece of scratch paper to kind of like if it was more complex. So
Sure.
when we started out, we just got a piece of plastic and drew a grid on it, and started using D6s and D4s.
The old days.
Yeah, the old days. So the D4s were the players be like, here, pick the D4 that best represents your character, and the monsters would all be D6s.
Well, when in college we used beer bottle caps. That's before I could start investing money on minis. We had okay, you're Shinerbach and you're some IPA beer or whatever. That's what's our minis.
Hey, whatever works. And
Yeah.
it's funny too because when you're describing like drawing the rooms and stuff, I'm like, have you ever considered Kit Kats? For the longest time, we had like this leftover bag of mini Kit Kats from Halloween.
Yeah.
And we would use them for like all of our terrain and walls. And then eventually you get the new guy at the table who's like, "Oh, Kit Kats," and like they've been sitting there for like 5 years. Can I have one? Like, sure. It was like initiation.
I'm gonna destroy this wall.
Yeah. The only problem is that Kit Kat's been sitting there for 5 years, and they bite into it, and you just watch the expression on their face. We might have been kind of assholes at the time.
You just want to see if he'll do it still.
Yeah.
I think the funniest thing about gaming back in the day, like especially high school days, was obviously it was you're a teenager, you're in someone's garage, or at least we were in a garage. We make a makeshift table. I mean, it was I don't know, it was just kind of cool. Like reflecting on it and just thinking about what little we had, but the games were still fun. Like we didn't have all these battle maps, we didn't have miniatures, we didn't have anything. We just had these bare bones, theater of the mind type, episodes. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird to think about that.
Yeah, I remember those days playing. We would play on someone's stoop. We'd play at someone's picnic table. We'd play in someone's basement. The game table changed until I started. We kind of like stopped for a little while, and I started up a new group, which would eventually be kind of the guys from Nerdarchy, and like a revolving cast of people over the past like decade and a half, 2 decades. And finally, we were then playing at someone's kitchen table, or I owned the basement we were playing in.
Yeah, playing on a kitchen table, that's an upgrade.
Yeah, the kitchen table for sure was an upgrade. Or, instead of being in someone's parents' basement, we were in our own basements.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's funny how I got into gaming. Actually, in high school, I wasn't the typical gamer. I played football. I was a jock. I dated cheerleaders, and that was just kind of me. And I have a twin sister, and she started dating this one guy, and we were hanging out, and he was just like, "Hey man, kind of a stoner kind of guy." He was like, "Hey man, you wanna try this game out?" I was like, "Well, yeah. What is it, like a video game or like a board game or something?" He's like, "No man, it's kind of like this game you play." And I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot." And then I was hooked. Like from that day forward, first game I ever played was actually Cyberpunk. I don't know if you know what that one is.
Yeah. I didn't actually start with D&D. My first 2 sessions of any RPG was Gamma World. I forget what edition. It might have been the first one. But yeah, if you Google Gamma World and check out the art, it had really fantastic art to it. But it was like this post-apocalyptic science fantasy kind of game. And then from there, I was introduced to the Red Box. But like I was probably like in kindergarten or like between kindergarten and like 6, 7, somewhere around there. I remember,
Destiny was set.
Yeah.
If you were gaming in kindergarten, your nerd destiny was set at that point. Your dad had a plan for you.
No, actually, I had an older neighbor, right? So,
Okay.
like where we lived, it was kind of weird because I actually live in that town now. I moved out, moved back, but it's not really rural, and it's not really it's not really suburbs. It's like somewhere's in between where things were spread out pretty far,
Hmm.
and so there wasn't a lot of kids. You just played with whatever kids happened to live close to you.
And I'm assuming internet wasn't a thing, right?
Yeah, no, there was no internet. I mean, like the kids that were better off, they had like Atari and ColecoVision back in the day.
That's if
Uh,
you're a rich kid right there. That's rich stuff.
yeah, that was rich. It was. It wasn't until many years later that we actually got an actual gaming console in our house. But yeah, so I had an older neighbor. He was like 2, 3 years older than me, and he introduced me to his friends, and you know, and introduced me to Gamma World and the Red Box, and then like it fell off for like probably like 5 years or so, and but in my like tweens, I was reintroduced to D&D, AD&D, and again, it was the same thing. Older kid in the neighborhood who would come and hang out with us and play soccer with us and stuff. And we always thought like he was a cool kid, but he was actually a big nerd. Um, he was cool to us because he was like 5, 6 years older than us. But that guy introduced us to D&D, and I was hooked ever since.
Were you from the era where you had to get a crown and you would have to? You're from that era?
I was,
I
yeah,
miss
yeah.
that. Yeah, I miss that era, but I know about it.
Well, you figure I was born in '75. The game came out, right around there, give or take a couple years.
Gotcha.
So yeah, in the '80s, Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
We were there for that. Fortunately, like our parents weren't all nuts and crazy about it, so we didn't have to deal with that too much. But it definitely was not the cool thing to do. Like you said, you probably had your secret D&D life, and
I, you know, I was always pretty public about it. I never, I mean, like, I have a tattoo on my arm. I don't know if I already get in the camera, Angler. It's the Fallout guy, and he's rolling a D20.
okay,
I've never, I'll send you a better angle of it. It's kind of hard to do with the camera. But,
just remove your arm.
no. I was the jock guy, so I was athletic and big and bigger than people around me. So if I said I played D&D, no one picked on me. They thought it was cool that I was doing it. I'm not trying to like this, but what I'm trying to say is that I had no bully to pick on me that the fact that I was playing D&D. You know.
I guess that made it easier. So what I found when I was going to school was there was like kids that were like either super nerdy, or like I was telling you before we started, there was like the secret sect of metalheads or headbangers that would play but wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
It just kind of kept it a secret. Like we had a code word for playing D&D. We called it rocking out. We're going to rock out this weekend, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
So,
You know, uh, the funny thing you were talking about these like secret societies or whatever. I think it's funny sometimes because, like I said, I've always been pretty public about it. But now, someone's like, like, yeah, I just launched a Kickstarter. Like some random person or somebody that I, casually know. They're like, yeah, I just launched a Kickstarter and it funded in 5 days or whatever. And then they'll be like, oh, cool, what is it? And I'd be like, well, it's this thing. Do you know D&D? And they're like, nope. Like, yeah, it's just I I can't explain it to you. You're not gonna get it. So it's just kind of funny. Even though the fact that I'm being public about it, it's still like there's still a huge gap between the knows and the people that don't know the game.
yeah, I mean, it is coming more into the consciousness of the general populace now with things like Stranger Things, and different media. So it is growing, and once we get the next D&D movie, there's going to be another explosion. Critical Role has done such a great job of like pushing out the hobby for people to find and see. So I feel like we're like on the cusp of the next big boom.
Sure. And then another thing is too is that the kids like us who played the game a lot are going to be influencing the younger generations. I mean, there's some lazy parents that don't want to spend the time playing D&D with their kids, so they just give them a controller and shut up kind of deal. But there's going to be a generation of us that want to interact with our kids and give them the same enjoyment we got, and that's going to kind of steamroll into them as an adulthood and bring about this, in my opinion.
Well, me and my partners were kind of already there. because we have kids that are playing. My son's been playing in one of our stream games, or one of the games we record and put up for years now, and Ted has already introduced his kids to our role playing games. My nephew, who's like 10 or 11, has got his first player's handbook, so it's happening.
Mm, yeah, you're like I said, you're sending them down a destiny path of nerdism. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of joy that comes in with playing and creating as a DM because it's like you're an artist and you're wanting someone who's going to want to see, like if you're the DM, for instance, you're the artist, you're creating the story, you're curating it, and then you get an audience who comes to your house weekly or monthly or however you set your games up to enjoy your art, the story that you made. If it's even if it's somebody else's story that's a module you're playing, but if it's your own, I don't know. That for me, that's I guess the biggest fulfillment when I game is because I have an audience who's looking at my art. I write mostly all original content. I don't really. I sometimes use a module to either start it, but I don't really. I'm not a module guy.
Yeah, we do mainly homebrew ourselves, so we're right there with you. But we buy all the modules, but we barely use any of them. Like it, I like telling the story how I was so happy when I used the pixie dust from Storm King's Thunder. Literally spent $50 to use like a paragraph.
I like, it's funny, I do like reading the modules because sometimes it gives me inspiration. You know what I mean? Like someone will craft a certain way the module's running and I like it. So, I do read them. I'm as nerdy as it seems. I just read them for fun.
It's funny. We got someone watching who's throwing some sports hate in your direction.
You're throwing some what?
Sports hate. I wanted to watch, but screw the Longhorns.
I didn't. I actually have a meeting I got to go to at 1, and I was trying to think of what I need to wear, and I can't wear a nerd shirt that I would typically wear all the time.
So you got all dressed up for us, sort of.
Yeah, well, not for you, but you know what? I did get dressed up for you.
All right, I'll take it. Take what I can get when I can get it. No, so how excited are you about the Kickstarter, man? Like, this is your first one. You guys are hitting it out of the park.
Yeah, so I've already gotten reached out from some local gaming shops here in Austin, Texas, who are interested in doing wholesale orders. We're not really prepared yet to do wholesale, but we will be. But really what the Kickstarter does is it funds my first initial PO, or purchase order. And when I do that, I will be able to figure out what the price point is I get per unit, and then I'll be able to figure out wholesale and retail and all that stuff. We feel really confident with a $15 price point for retail. It might slide a little bit, but it's not going to go over 20 for sure. But as far as the Kickstarter is concerned, yeah, we're really excited about it. I mean, we're hoping that we can prove that there's a demand for it, which is obvious, and then just go from there. I mean, really, I would be more excited. I'm more excited about new projects, like new art projects for like the graveyard or treasure room, taverns, towns. I mean, we have billions of ideas.
So will it all be the same artist that does it? Will you guys branch out?
So right now, I've talked with Ross, and he's actually not interested in doing further commissions. But he did kind of send me a little bit of network of people that have influenced him and kind of got me into him. So we're working on probably a new artist. Unfortunately, I really do love Ross's art, and hopefully maybe he'll change his mind.
So going forward, when you start doing other packs, how important is it for you to keep that style?
Pretty important. One thing we're going to steer away from, and I mean, a lot of the stuff, some of them are really too small. I mean, I do love them. That's just my opinion. As this thing's got further, I was like, man, this stuff needs to be just a little bit bigger. Some of it's a little fiddly. That's just my opinion. I mean, not to down talk my product, but that's one discrepancy I personally have is I wish the pieces were somewhat bigger. They can easily get lost. So that's one issue.
Well, to a certain
off topic, aren't I?
to a certain extent, though, like things are the size that they are, so they kind of have to be scale. Otherwise, it'd be ridiculous if the chamber pot was like a 4x4.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just really excited about where we're at. I mean, it's weird because really what this started with was something that I wanted. Something that I was like, man, I wish I had this. I would buy this if I was in a gaming shop and I looked left and I saw this, I would buy it. And that's really what it started. And I did a little bit of testing. I went to the game stores and I'd see a bunch of table of nerds who, I didn't know them. I said, hey, look at this stuff. What do you think? If this was a token, would you buy it? Yes, no. Kind of just getting different people. Oh, you would buy it? How much would you pay for it? Kind of sample testing to see what the interest was. But that was really just a remote Austin type area. I didn't survey the world. And it was awesome to see that we launched a Kickstarter and in 5 days it funded and it's still growing from there. I mean, it just shows that there's an actual interest in this product. So
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, and even I was talking to Jim Davis. He's like, "Oh, I was worried it wasn't going to fund," and I was looking at it because it looked like the first day or two, like it didn't really take off as fast. And they say like if your Kickstarter doesn't really do really good the first 48 hours, it's probably not going to do well. But then the next time I looked at it, you'd like blown past your goal. So I was like, "Oh, that's super cool."
yeah, no, we were super excited about it. I mean, what I started doing was I was trying to build a following, and I was trying to do it naturally without like having to pay for things, like pay for ads from Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And so what I did was I started asking people, or I started making maps using the tokens. I'll probably share with you. I have a Imgur, profile that I set up.
Okay.
So I made different maps that you can use these tokens to like kind of show what you can do with them. I mean, I did a tribute to the Cragmaw hideout map. I did a pirates. It's like 6 of them. So, and I started posting them on Twitter and on Facebook, and it started building an organic following. And then when I launched the Kickstarter, I already had I guess you could say like a fan base or a interest base of people.
Yeah, definitely share that link, and I'll spread it. I'll spread it around.
Yeah.
So, Jacob Stokes, when your product branches out and goes wholesale, would you reach out outside of Texas, say Louisiana? Everywhere's but Louisiana, buddy.
No, of course, we have plans. If it's up to me, I'd be nationwide. So we plan on trying to reach out to different distributors and see if we can be interested in picking us up. We think that's the best tactic to kind of spread our product around the United States. So really, with this Kickstarter funding, I think it kind of gives us a leg up to the distributors and saying, hey, we funded, there's interest, and work out a deal with them where they get it at a wholesale and they can distribute it to their network of stores.
Yeah, and guys, if you're just joining us, or if you're new to the channel, as always, on the YouTube channel in the video description, you can find all the links, social media, websites, Kickstarter, all that good stuff, to Michael and Geek Tank
Come check us
Games.
out. The funny thing about the video on the Kickstarter, I think we're going to add a stretch goal, and it's going to be the blooper reels. Like, literally, there's like maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds of screen time of this ugly mug, but it took like an hour of me just messing up over and over again. I couldn't say a sentence without. So I'm thinking I want to release a bloopers reel at the end of this of me just, failing at acting.
Well, it's not for everybody, and doing anything new. But that would actually be cool, the blooper reel. So
Yeah.
we usually have people here from Virtual Tabletops to ask this question, but I will ask it since they're not here. Any plans to go to VTTs with these?
So the art is provided by Two Minute Tabletop. You can actually go to his website now and take a look at it. I know he sells some of it, and some he just gives exclusively to people that are on his Patreon. So they're available now for that. Actually, I'm sure he gives it in a file format that allows it to use for that. And other than what I'm doing it with the tokens, that's the only use I have of the art. He still obviously has 100% of the art and does whatever he wants with it. So really, if you're interested in getting it for Virtual Tabletop, it's available already.
So Billy Badace wants to know: are they weighted?
They're about. You know what? I'll grab one out for Billy. They're about as heavy as a piece of piece of paper, maybe a little heavier than a piece of paper. So this right here is the size of it, but the durability is what I like. I mean, you can literally like almost try to fold this in half, and it'll pop right back up.
Well, it looks like it's got some thickness to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, it's literally about the size of a sheet of paper, maybe a little, like 2 sheets of paper. It's super thin, but it comes with a whole bunch of these trees. And the one thing actually that I noticed that I enjoy about it is originally, like I said in the beginning of this video, I wanted a stencil. And actually, when you're done with this, you can actually use this as a stencil if you want, you know? So every piece that comes out, like this rock, you can just use this as a stencil if you want. So if you do buy the product, I would suggest keeping these little outcuts. You know, you never know when you want to draw a circle or some weird shape.
Well, and you know, it's super nice compared to terrain in the sense that it's easy to store.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that we designed the packaging for was actually putting this Ziploc bag here, so that when you're done with it, you can keep all your stuff and put it back in here and then seal it. So, I mean, it's not an end, like, you know, end of the day. It's kind of more like, just weird phrase that. It's kind of the end of the day, but not the final storage for it, because, I mean, within years, it'll probably start to wear and tear. The bag will, at least.
Have you thought about that, like putting together something for storage?
I actually had a really cool idea. You know, I don't know if you ever collected Marvel cards or baseball cards when you were a kid, but remember how you'd get a binder and you'd buy those little card sleeves?
Yes.
I was thinking about doing the same thing, except I would have to probably engineer it a little bit to make larger ones to, like, you know, the trees are a little bigger than your standard baseball card, so you'd have to have some pockets that were larger. But yes, we have thought of that. But obviously that's a rabbit hole in its own to go down.
So, what do you think the most ambitious idea you have as far as a set that you want to make in the future?
Really, the one that I really want to do next, I don't know why, but I want to do rooftops. I know this sounds silly, but I would like to have a package of just different rooftops that we laid on the battle map. It has the angles, it has the smokestack, and you know, you get 5 or 6, I don't even know how many rooftops, but just something, you know, when you're just in a town and you know, you can just put these rooftops down and bam. I don't know. That sounds silly, but I would buy it. I just kind of think of things that I would buy. I don't know if that's not the most ambitious, but that's just the one that's on the surface of my mind, I guess you could say.
No, that works, and the negative spaces become the streets and alleyways. So
Correct.
so it definitely works and does what you want it to do. So James wants to know. This will sound odd, but how cat proof are they? Because cats are jerks. Yes, they are.
As long as the cat doesn't start gnawing on it, it should be fine. We, funnily enough, because that brings up a point, this one here is not the final product. So it's not 100% scratch resistant. So if I got this and I just kind of did it on a table, you'll see that it got damaged. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah.
So when we realized that the product was actually being damaged like this, we went back to the manufacturer and said, we need this to be a resolution. And so what we worked out is that we're going to be using an acrylic type ink. It's a different type of ink. I forget what they called it. I think it started with an A. But they're going to be also doing a UV varnish on it. So it's going to have a coat over it to kind of protect the ink from damage. So, I mean, this isn't just like cheapo stuff. This is actually made out of a polyvinyl. That's why the material is, it pops back up and throw it around. But that is one issue that we've actually addressed. So the final product should be pretty much scratch resistant, or hopefully scratch proof. I mean, don't get it and do what I did to it, but I think it's pretty resistant to a cat. We've been thinking about how to make something that will last. So to answer, I think he said his name was Jim.
James, yeah.
James. To answer James, your cat will have a hard time with it as long as it just doesn't start gnawing on it.
which is exactly what your cat will probably do. So.
Yeah.
Get that squirt bottle handy.
Yeah, if it eats plastic, then you might want to. I don't know. So yeah.
Nothing is 100% cat proof when they really want to be jerks. Taryn wanted to know what the price point was. We mentioned it earlier, but at $15 is what you're going for per pack, right?
Yeah, for the Kickstarter 15, when we hit retail, it might slide between 15 and 20, because now we have to deal with the distributor, and now we have, there's a middleman in the way. Not in the way, but I mean, trust me, I love my gaming store. I'd rather go to the gaming store and buy stuff from them than Amazon because I like to support my store. So with that said, if we have to deal with distributors, then the distributor takes a piece of the pie, and so then we have to really figure out the right number to the consumer and the right number to the retailer and the distributor and then the company. So you know what I mean? There's these people. There's all these people that are there. So.
Yeah, Austin. You're in Austin, you said?
Yes, sir.
You guys have a good gaming community there.
Yeah, we have some really good. Yeah, I mean it's a college town and just there's a lot of people here. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we do not. So we shop at Amazon. We don't have that many gaming stores, and one of the best ones we did have closed up shop after being there forever, and it's so sad too because it was like the first gaming store that I had been into that it was actually like brightly lit and had big windows. It's like before that it was like you'd have to go to like a comic book store, and there's places where like holes in the wall and all the window spaces taken up by posters, so it's like no sunlight.
Yeah, the employee smells like he hasn't showered in a couple days.
You walk in there and it's like walking into an adult bookstore.
Now we have a really cool gaming store, Dragon's Lair. They've been in Austin since like the '80s, or something like somewhere around there. They've been here in Austin for a long time, and that's our go-to store, or my go-to store. So.
Yeah, for me where I'm at, I'd have to go into Philadelphia to actually find some gaming stores to actually hang out in.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, gaming stores, it's really hard for them to stay afloat. I mean, I don't know the logistics or the in and out day-to-day stuff for a gaming store, but I can imagine that retail space because it could be such a niche market, and then I don't know. I hope more people will, if it's not too troublesome, go to a gaming store versus Amazon because these people really center a community, for people to come and geek out together, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely cool when you do have that space where you can hang out, play your games, and if you're doing that, you absolutely need to support those spaces to the best of your ability. And it's cool to see what Wizards of the Coast has done with giving them the early releases, as well as the alternate covers. So they're acknowledging that and at least trying to help out.
Yeah, no, I think because I think they need each other. I think they coexist. Like the publishers need the gaming store, and the gaming store needs the publisher, kind of deal. So I think it's good when a company recognizes, even Wizards of the Coast recognizes their roots. Their roots, they've been around pre-digital age too, pre-Amazon. So they really heavily relied on bookstores and retails to help them move their product, So I think that's good.
So Fragginator says, my game store calls me whenever something new comes in. They also let me know when when they pre-order something for me. My wife hates it. Yeah, I bet.
Do you have an escrow account? You should open up an escrow account and just put money in there.
Yeah, so you just have it ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing too is like, it's one thing to have a local gaming store, but they also have to like provide a good service and make you want to go there. Like when we were kids, there was a comic book store we would go to all the time, and like the one guy that worked there was really great and helpful, but like the owner like seemed to hate kids. But like you own a comic book store where kids are gonna come and shop for your comics, especially back in like the '80s, even more so. So so it was just like kind of like a hostile environment to kind of go into for your hobby, because
well, I mean, if your parents are just using the comic book store as a babysitter for the kids, then I can understand that. Here, drop your kids off, give them no money, and leave them at the comic book store so you can go. I mean, I don't know if people did that or not, but
I'm sure to a certain extent they did. But for myself, I can only speak for myself. I was a customer. I came there to spend money and buy stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think any store owner, anybody in business needs to have a neutral approach to anything. I think it's hard for someone to get too one-sided about something when there's, for me, my approach would always be just neutral. I'm not gonna have an opinion about.
It's like you said, it's a hard business to be in because one, if they have to hire help, it's like they can't afford to pay help that much because there's so much overhead to running a store. So the chances are like they're gonna get some kid that doesn't really care that much about what's going on. So it's really tough. And
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what happened with the one game store that we had around here that was really decent. Was they opened a second store, so now they had to have other people running one store while they had the other one up and going, and I think from there that kind of caused it to kind of go downhill.
Yeah, we used to I can't remember the name of the gaming store, but it went down, and there's another one that's we're hearsay it's going down. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know like how the effects of like Amazon, for instance. I don't know what the effects are on them. Just for it's like I can go to the gaming store and look at this game I want to buy, and then I can just open up Amazon, look, oh hey, it's cheaper, boom, and I just purchase it. I don't get it now, but I get it, a few days later, and I don't know. Who knows what the effect of Amazon is going to do to retail? It's going to affect it for sure, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean you have to do business differently, right? It's going to be about tournaments. It's about holding Pokemon tournaments now and Magic tournaments and and doing different services, having game nights that are bringing people into your store, and maybe you end up making more money selling Coca-Cola and Snickers bars than you do on the gaming stuff. You
Yeah.
know, but
I was just there at the gaming store the other day, and the only thing I bought was a Snickers bar and a Coke. So I can speak to that.
yeah, well, yeah. So like things kind of change, until there's a new product that comes out or something like that.
Like this one.
Like this one where you can go and pick it up and which is kind of also what I've seen people do too, and maybe this is something that'll end up happening with your product is where they rent terrain and minis at the store. And so if you don't want to buy it because for whatever reason you don't want to store it, or it's more economic, if it's more economical for you just to rent what you need at the time. But I've seen
Sure.
game stores actually do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for like big terrain. I mean, I can imagine a gaming store just letting this be something free that a table can use. Like they just go grab it and use it, and if another table shows up and they want to use it, well, snooze you lose kind of deal. But if the store wanted to rent it out, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that would bother me all that much, unless I noticed like sales were declining because of it.
There's I seen a board game store. They rent board games. Like you rent it for the day, the night, or the week, or whatever. So
Oh, that must be,
so people.
that must be a nightmare. I don't know. I don't know. I like imagine having to keep up with that and whether there's late fees and who has it. I mean, just think about the old VHS rental movie or blockbusters, and probably with the logistics in that. And now you got to deal with it with board gamings and little small components. Like, oh man, I don't know.
I guess they look at it as a way that maybe they're gonna sell. You actually
Yeah.
sell the game if people rent it and they like it, then they can try it out before they buy it. Essentially,
I heard. My buddy told me this cool gaming. I don't remember the name of the gaming store, but he was out there, and what it is, you pay a fee to play the game, but that incur gives you credit to purchase anything in the store. So the money goes back to you in the long run if you make a purchase. That's how they do it.
yeah, that's actually a pretty cool idea. Uh, Boyd says caverns, please. Any plans for caverns?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think the next set we're doing is going to be a more dungeon-y type set. I really would like to work on figuring out a way to do elevations, like like when you're in a cave complex and the monsters are up on a higher elevation, you're on a lower elevation. I'd like to figure out a way to create elevation tokens that you can kind of put together, and then it can really demonstrate to the mind and the eye when you look down on it that they're different planes of elevation. That's really what I'd like to focus on as far as art is concerned, for the caverns at least.
So Taryn says, I bought a Xanthar's Guide at my flags for $60. It was $30 on Amazon. I know exactly why stores are closing. Yeah, there's another store that kind of irks me a bit because I needed Cards Against Humanity for something I was doing. And I went in there and bought it, and they're like $40. I'm like, all right, $40, whatever. And then I realized it's like 25 everywhere else. Not just like Amazon, but anywhere else. I'm like, yeah, that you just really encouraged me to never shop here again.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that with Cards Against Humanity, I actually looked into those guys a little bit. I was just curious about wholesaling and stuff, and I wanted to see how they did it. I was just looking for anything, and it turned out that their product was so well marketed and so popular that they didn't have to go to retailers or distributors. They were just getting direct sales and doing all that. So when it came to dealing with the distributor, they were like, we don't need you. So we don't need to cut into your we don't need you to cut into our margins. So the stores that do pick it up, they buy it at wholesale price, or they buy it at retail price at 25 and mark it up a little bit. So because everybody's walking into their gaming store asking for the product, and they're like, well, we can't get it at a wholesale price, from what I understand.
Well, and that might be the case. So I might stand corrected on that one. And
well, $40 is a stretch, though. I mean, 25. If they put a $40 price tag on a $25 buy, you got burned. You got burned on that one.
Well, at least it was a write-off. Then I've also heard horror stories of people stores getting the special edition covers and then marking them up, like and they are getting them at wholesale, and the actual distributor or Wizards of the Coast is actually doing something to help promote their business, and they're turning around and gouging their customers in return.
I mean, I don't know. The thing is, the hard part about this is that if you're in business, you're aware of your numbers. I mean, if you're selling something, you're aware of what the cost is, and you're aware that you have to, at the minimum, you have to operate at what's called an X3. And I'm going into this. Stop me if I start boring you. But let's say it cost me $4 to make a product. Well, then I need to sell it for a minimum times 3 of that. So I have to sell it for at least $12 because I need 4 to produce, 4 to reproduce, 4 for profit. So then that's your wholesale. And then I mean that's not the best, but that's kind of the model you want to be at if you're going to be in business selling something. So because if you're only getting 2x on it, that means it's 4 to produce, 4 to reproduce, 0 profit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of so when you start getting into it with others, distributors, and stores, and the end consumer, what they're willing to pay for the product, it's kind of a weird scenario that you got to try to figure out. Sorry, I'm going into detail.
That's okay. It's funny in the chat. Economics with Nerdarchy.
Well, I've been thinking about it. Okay, so economics with Nerdarchy.
Well, actually, I mean, you're running a business. We run a business. I left my day job last year to do this full time. So yeah, like those things are on the forefront. Unfortunately, yeah. My kids still want to eat 3 times a day. God damn it.
Yeah. Dad, we're tired of bologna and cheese.
Yeah. Can we eat something other than ramen?
Yeah. Give them different flavor. No, you can give them different flavored ramen.
Yeah, there you go. So, I know you have to run out of here soon. Just let me know when we have to pull the ripcord.
I'd say about 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes. I have a meeting I need to get to. That's why I'm wearing the T-shirt.
No worries. So, guys, any questions you have before Michael goes, feel free to ask them. In the meantime, we'll just keep chatting away. So, how long have you been working on this project? How long did it take to kind of like from conception to the Kickstarter?
Probably about 2 years. But mind you, I spent a lot of time on the stencils, the original stencils I showed you earlier. And so once I thought I thought that was going to be the greatest idea I've ever came up with, was the stencil originally. And then finally, when I got the prototypes, after like 6 months I had to hire an AutoCAD guy to like do the layouts. I mean, all the stuff that goes into trying to get a product produced is pretty hardcore, and it's costly. But when I finally got the stencil after about a year of that, I was like, this is crap. This is complete crap. And so then maybe about after that, another year of dealing with this product and the manufacturing, getting everything set up. I mean, I don't know if it not to press too much on the manufacturing, but the time and energy putting into the manufacturing to make sure that this thing came out the way it came out was very extensive, and I could tell you it was costly. But to get at that, it was about 2 years total in time, and hopefully this thing will go from there.
So Taryn wants to know: is there any chance we could get a custom artwork printed in this material?
Um, it, not through the manufacturer, because what the thing is that these things are going to be on what's called a kiss cut or a die cut. So when it comes through the machine, they have this thing that's just knocking knocking the tokens out. So it's not laser cut. Secondly, to do that, you have to pay the cost of getting the vector file set up. So I mean, yes, the answer is we could, but it's going to cost a couple $100. So I don't think anybody's going to be interested in that for a simple custom set.
That would,
yeah.
Which makes sense, and that's why you guys are making different sets to try and fulfill the different needs.
Yeah. So there's probably a local company wherever he's at that can do laser cut, and if you can get like a polyvinyl type material and the art, you might be able to do a custom one. A custom one probably would cost you about $20-25 at a print shop, but they're not going to be, they're not going to be like our product. They're not going to be durable. They'll probably scratch really easy. There'll probably be certain issues that you'll have. I don't know. Depends on what you do with them.
So custom is going to be a lot more tricky. Have you considered like doing any surveys or kind of I guess surveys to see what people would want?
So So Kickstarter has a survey system that once it launches, I can send out messages to all the people that back me. That's one of the things we're going to survey is what would you like next? Maybe kind of give them a couple options. And then on Twitter, you have poll options, and so on Facebook, you can also do kind of surveys. So we're going to try to reach out and see what people are really interested in. So there's plans to really reach out. We want to stay with the community and make sure that we kind of tailor to what people are asking for.
So have you considered doing any monsters?
We actually do. I can't really talk about it right now because I'm still working something out with the artist. But I have an artist in mind who makes really cool tokens, and it really would match with what we're doing now. So in the future, we will be planning on doing minis, but I can't talk about it now. It's like one of the secret things, right?
Super secret.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the artist is going to agree with us, and so I don't want to throw his name out there, and
So yeah, along those lines, Forjimmer had asked about a dwarf theme set, so yeah, it goes along into the secret file.
Well, we kind of want to stick to like each token set to have like a broad theme to it, to where it's not just dwarves. Like we'd probably do something like, I don't know, not just a dwarf set of tokens, but just like I don't know, just maybe like another furnishing set, but tailor it more to like anvils and hammers. We just want to kind of cover a broad spectrum of a thematic scene.
No, I totally get that. So it's more about so it has more usability at the table.
Correct. Yeah.
Jacob Stokes says highly anticipate your product. Michael excited for what's next, and he's one of your backers as well. He had mentioned earlier in the chat. So that's definitely cool to see. You got some fans, growing fan base growing.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Hey, thanks for backing us. It really does mean a lot from nerd to nerd, DM to DM. You're going to love this product. I mean, I put a lot of heart and soul into making this thing work. So I can't wait to see the hopeful positive backlash for it.
The other day I realized that I had booked all Kickstarters this week. Didn't even realize it. I'm like, oh, the poor fans. There's so much cool stuff out there right now. So, are you familiar with Matt Colville?
Oh yeah,
okay.
I saw his. Yes, I actually emailed him like 4 or 5 times asking him if he would like just give me a shout out on his channel.
Yeah.
He's too busy for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's definitely tough to get in front. I'm sure there's a lot of voices that he's got coming in his direction. We have him
Sure,
coming
his
on.
Kickstarter did like $1 million, over $1 million now.
Last time I looked, it's 1.2, so he's poised to to pass seventh C. Nothing personal against John Wick, but I kind of hope he does because I would rather see a D&D product
Hold
hold
the
the
title
top
for a while.
slot for RPGs.
Hey, I mean, you guys can try to get me up to the, right, competing with Matt. I'm down for that too. No, but, speaking of Matt, I actually backed his. And the reason is that I think he's a genuine DM, and I think that he would put out some great content for a DM to kind of use and utilize in his game. So I'm trying to get him to that 1.3 as well.
Yeah, we backed it as well. I'm excited to see what he comes out with, and so he'll be on. I think Thursday we have him coming on, and it's funny. Like the first time we had him on the show, it was like a Grateful Dead concert. People showed up 8 o'clock in the morning in the chat, and they're just like
Wow.
waiting, talking to each other.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what comes with, I guess, nerd celebrity. Him having the popularity he does, and righteously so. I mean, he puts out good content for people to enjoy, and really, I think it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation was, there's going to be a new era of popularity for D&D. It's not going to be the nerds, hiding in the mom's basement playing. It's going to be at the forefront. Eventually. And they'll still call us nerds, and I don't care, but we'll be popular nerds.
Well, but now like those nerds are like LA people, so it's definitely changed. It's changing. There's definitely a lot more diversity in the niche. There's all kinds of people. It's not just old grognards like myself. So it's cool. It's really growing and expanding.
Yeah, I think it's if someone can become a celebrity by playing D&D, then it shows the popularity. So
It only makes sense too. Like actors and voice actors and people that were in drama and theater, they gravitated toward the hobby anyway. So now it's coming out that people like Vin Diesel and Wesley Snipes and all these high caliber actors were actually gamers as well. So that's really
sure,
cool.
yeah. I didn't know Wesley Snipes was a gamer. That's crazy.
We actually broke that story on our channel, so that was really cool because he agreed to work on a Starfinder project, and we happen to have the guys on that were doing it.
Wow, did
And
not know that about Wesley. Huh.
yeah, yeah. So Blade plays D&D.
Well,
So
I think it's playing D&D is a perfect way to practice improv. I mean, if you're into improv and acting on the fly, play D&D. I mean, it's right up your alley if that's what you'd like to do.
well, and yeah, and that's exactly how I run my games anyway, and at Nerdarchy, we tend to run our games as more of improv. We don't do a lot of pre-planned stuff. Where where like a product like yours is actually pretty good when we can have bags of stuff to kind of like reach in and be like, oh yeah, there's bushes here, or yeah, whatever, depending on what's going on.
There's a table of chairs in the middle of a forest. Just yeah.
Yeah, just drop it down. There's orcs and pixies playing cards.
Yeah. Well, it is about that time, I guess. But I really enjoyed the conversation. Hell, I wouldn't mind doing it again, even if it's on YouTube or not. I enjoy speaking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can come back anytime you like. Next time you have something going on, if you want to, or if you just want to come hang out, I'll be more than happy to have you on, Michael. It's been fun chatting with you. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks everyone who's been hanging out with us today. Until next time, stay nerdy.
All right, all right, guys.